Thank you all for being here today. I'd like to first introduce myself. My name is Jake Bascone. I am the Associate Director of Admissions for our on-ground programs here in California. I am based out of our San Diego campus, but I do oversee the admissions for all of our 6 California campuses, which do include the MFT, Master's and PhD programs, which is what we're going to be discussing today. Also joining us today is Julian on my team here from the San Diego campus, our Senior Admissions Counselor, as well as Crystal Fay, one of the finance officers. I'm really excited to be here today with you all. We'll be discussing a very important topic, and that's the difference in starting your MFT program in the summer versus the fall. It's really important to me and to us here at Alliant that we educate our students on some really big recent changes and that you all are able to understand the impact of choosing to start your program in the summer versus the fall. So, really, what does that mean? When should you start? What does that mean for you? And why did we even open up a summer option for you all? Are kind of the questions we'll be addressing today. So, this is today's agenda. We already went over number one, which is the purpose of today's webinar. Next, what we'll be doing is have our president and CEO, Andy Vaughn, come in and chat. He has a very unique insight to the recent federal changes that have pushed us to open up this summer start. So we'll have some unique insights there. After, we'll hear from one of our finance officers who will dive into the details of the recent federal changes and how they may affect you financially. And then do a Q&A session. We'll also be having a quick Q&A session after Andy Vaughn gets to speak as well. So you can ask him questions directly. And then lastly, we'll have some next steps for you all. So without further ado, I'll just go ahead and hand it over to our president and CEO, Andy Vaughn.
Jake, thank you. Hey, just a quick note. So I've served as president and CEO for the last 11 years at Alliant. We're an institution of higher learning for the last 100 years. I think our exact birth date is coming up on 105. We've had a few different names over the years, some mergers and acquisitions over the last 85 to be exact. For those in the San Diego area, we sit on a 72-acre campus in Scripps Ranch. For those outside, we have campuses in 6 California cities, and we have our new health sciences and nursing school in Phoenix, Arizona. We've certainly gone through a lot of changes, but we are laser focused in the last decade or so on professional practice programs that lead to state licensure. Nobody does more than we do in mental health in the in national numbers, at least. And in California, about 40% of all licensed clinical psychologists come from Alliance California School of Professional Psychology. And your program you're looking into, MFT, sits within CSPP as well. And we've been doing that for about 55 years. So very proud of our not just market share, but ability to impact in a very positive way the accessibility and also just making sure that we're the largest provider of mental health licensed professionals in the country, which is quite the accomplishment for Alliant. We don't have sports teams. We don't have dorms or swimming pools or lazy rivers. We are laser focused on graduate level education that leads to licensure. We may not be a household name in the general public, but certainly anyone in mental health, K-12 education, and related fields, and now nursing certainly knows who we are. So that's a brief elevator pitch about who we are as Alliant. You may know some of that already, but didn't know how much depth of information you had about our university system and our history. So I had the unique opportunity to be nominated and selected as a federal negotiator for the U.S. Department of Education late last summer. And I served on the committee that was tasked with creating 17 new higher education regulations that will be published in the Federal Register here in the next few months out of the One Big Beautiful Bill legislation that Congress wrote and the president signed last July 4th. The One Big Beautiful Bill, whether you love it, hate it, or somewhere in between, had a lot of content, but higher education was one of the major targets for funding cuts at the federal government level. And so our job as a negotiator, there were 3 of us that served for all 5,000 US universities. And our job as federal negotiators was to take the language that Congress passed in the bill the president signed and turn that into legislation. Congress is not an expert in any one area. That's not their job. Their job is to provide direction in the bumpers and the navigation of where they want regulations to go. And so our job then was to take those bumpers and put them into formalized regs that'll go live here July 1st of this year. There were 17 different regulations, most of which were centered around student loan repayments, public loan service forgiveness, a lot of topics about repayment of loans, things of that sort. But the most important topic was professional designation. You probably heard about that in the news. The nursing story was big in November and December. Which programs were deemed professional? You should know that there are a lot of half-truths and stories out there The professional designation was not a judgment call on whether or not somebody was quote unquote professional or not. It really was a very limited scope to just Title IV funding. That's it. I think that the unfortunate term was professional. It probably could have been a different word. And I think a lot of people took that the wrong way. But as far as the Department of Education goes, the term professional is simply about one thing and one thing only. 11 programs get higher level of funding because they're more at the doctoral level. They're programs where you can't work full time, such as MD, DDS, osteopathy, and one of our other programs, clinical psychology, doctoral, PsyD, and PhDs. And then the rest of the graduate level programs are for mostly master's degrees. Marriage and family therapy, sometimes known as couples family therapy, both the PhD and the Master of Arts degree fall in what we call the graduate category. And the graduate category is a Stafford loan direct cap of 100,000 starting in the new financial aid year, which starts July 1st. If you enroll in the program and start in the program prior to the end of June, and you have a financial aid disbursement from federal loans, not private, but federal loans that are dispersed to you before June 30th, that night at midnight, then you qualify what's called for the legacy program. A little bit higher level in caps for federal Stafford Direct. Our program is nowhere near 100,000, so typically $100,000 cap would be fine. But some of you come in with other graduate level debt, which counts against that cap. Other situations are, and my spouse is a licensed marriage family therapist, so I know the program very well. I know the career very well. I've worked at Alliant 11 years, no MFT front and back. I am not a therapist, nor am I qualified to be one, but I certainly am surrounded by therapists and psychologists every day at work and at home. I'm married to a marriage family therapist myself. So I certainly understand that career and what goes into getting that degree and license, more importantly. And so part of getting an MFT degree completed is a couple of components. One is the hours of supervised training that you do while you're in the program itself. And depending on which state you're in, there can be as many as 1,500 hours or more in some states after you graduate to get that independent license. So you'll graduate, you'll get something like an associate's or an ALMFT license to practice under supervision post grad. Then you got a couple of years of supervision. You're getting paid for that work, but you certainly get paid a lot more when the independent license hits once you get your post-degree supervised hours done. Why do I bring that up in the realm of Title IV funding? Well, some students in MFT programs use what's called the Grad PLUS loan. The Grad PLUS loan. So there's two products of the federal government right now for student loans. There's a Stafford direct loan. When someone says, hey, I got a student loan, 99% of the time they're talking about a Stafford direct. A Stafford direct loan issued by the federal government Department of Ed, known as Title IV, typically covers tuition, fees, books, and related expenses to the university cost of going to school, getting a degree for a licensure program. Grad PLUS has been used by thousands of graduate students at Alliant and elsewhere for living expenses. If they're not working full time, and some programs, you certainly can work in an MFT program. My spouse did. But it can become a challenge for some, especially if you have a family to take care of, or depending on what your life situation is. And so we found that roughly 25% of our MFT students have taken out Grad PLUS loans from the federal government to help with living expenses. That loan is going away after July 1st for new students. We couldn't save that as a negotiating team. Our job as a negotiating team was try to soften the language, and we did just that, work on legacy program exclusions. We worked on what programs would be eligible for the professional designation list where we could. And we spent 3 months writing regulations. But one thing that we could not negotiate was saving Grad PLUS. Congress had spoken. We were not there to negotiate keeping that loan. So as a federal negotiator, that was just off the table for us. What we did instead is we worked on things that will impact students in a positive way, about leave of absences and legacy program, where you get to keep access to these old loan programs for a few more years. And that's the important part for you to know today. If you start an MFT program or any graduate program for that matter, anywhere at any school that's Title IV eligible, and Alliant is, you get to keep access to the old loan limits on Federal Direct Stafford, and you get to keep access to Grad PLUS for 3 more years. It will be phased out for everybody on June 30th of 2029. But if you start after July 1st, there's no access to Grad PLUS and you revert to the new loan limits on the federal direct Stafford. For most people, it's going to make sense if you can to start your program before July 1st. Not for everybody, but for most. It really depends on your individual situation. So the team today is going to walk you through maybe some scenarios and get into more details, especially Crystal. But our financial aid team is here to help you. We help everybody that inquires, not just active students, but as a prospective student, you have access to our team to ask a lot of questions to see what the right path is for you. It may be the right path for you to start before July 1st, and maybe it's not. But I really encourage you to talk about your individual circumstances, either on this panel call today or even offline with one of our financial aid representatives or financial aid experts that really know the nuances of this. And there are a lot of nuances and traps involved in federal legislation. It's really important you get all of the information. But again, it's really tough to make a blanket statement for everybody because everyone's individual situation is very different. So again, just to sum it up, if you start an MFT program or any graduate program in 2026 prior to June 30th, and you have a federal loan that is dispersed by June 30th, then you'll have access to what's called the legacy program. And the legacy program will run through June 30th of 2029. What does that mean exactly? It means Grad PLUS will be available for you as a secondary loan product at government loan rates, which are better than the private market, and you'll have access to the old caps. If you start after July 1st, there is no Grad PLUS any longer for new students after July 1st. There's no legacy program after July 1st for new students. Active students get to keep it for 3 years, but new students do not get it. And you have the old loan limits. And again, the tuition price is nowhere near that amount, but it depends on everyone's individual situation. Are you bringing in graduate level debt or other debt from the federal government loans? Do you need living expense money? These are all questions you want to ask the team today in detail. We did a lot of work in 3 months with the department. It was really a great opportunity to have Alliant at the table to work with the Department of Education directly, the legal team at Department of Education, and even the congressional staff. So got to know the policy advisors and policy writers in the Health Committee, the Health Education Loan Pension Committee on the U.S. Senate side. On the House side, it's called the Workforce and Education Group. Got to know all of those folks on a very personal level, and it was a really great experience for Alliant to really be a part of something huge. You probably heard about the story in the news again last fall. I'm going to open it up for Q&A here on the session, so happy to answer any questions. And there's a lot of nuances out there, so I wanted to share that with you too. Before I do that, though, just really want to talk about our MFT program. It's been around for a long time. The name of Alliant University before Alliant, for those that have been in Southern California, was United States International University, known as USIU. We used to have sports teams and dorms and all those things. And again, roughly about a decade ago, we decided to teach out our undergraduate programs, get rid of our dorms. We abandoned our sports teams about 30 years ago, soon after our worst loss in NCAA history. We still own an NCAA record for the worst basketball loss in Division I history. So we still have a record out there for our sports teams. It's probably not a coincidence that we got rid of our teams about a year after that big loss. But we still have a basketball arena in San Diego that we rent out to high schools. It used to be a very traditional campus with sprawling acres of undergraduate students. But our focus has been on these licensure programs. We do it very well. You'll find our faculty, and I know our MFT faculty very, very well. They write textbooks for research universities. They do worldwide consulting. These are experts in the field, and I hope you get a chance to meet our faculty from the MFT side, a very special group of people, just amazing work they do on a global basis. All right, I see some questions coming in, so I'll read them out loud. One question is, does this only apply to federal loans or do these changes apply to private loans? Only federal. So right now at Alliant, less than 1% of our students use private loans. That's because we're a graduate level university, and the Grad PLUS loan that sits on top of the federal direct Stafford covers your full cost of living expenses if you want it to. Most students don't do that. Minority of group of students do that, but it is available as a product now. So that's why right now, very, very few students at Alliant in most schools use private loans. What will happen after July 1st is if federal direct Stafford doesn't give you enough after you pay for your tuition, books, and fees, it'll give you enough for that in most cases. If it doesn't, and you need living expense help for a couple of years, that would probably be moving over towards a private loan. And we do have relationships with 3 different private lenders that'll be available for Alliant students to utilize too. Typically, though, the interest rates are a couple points higher, depends on your credit score. That's the advantage. A federal loan really doesn't care so much about credit history. A private loan does. And that's the big difference between the two situations. So, no, the question is, does this only apply to federal? Yes. The private loans are a whole separate entity. Those are largely unchanged. Next question is, looking for the academic calendar online, MFT program start date. Jake, do you have that handy?
That's going to be June 1st for the MFT start date.
Okay, June 1st is the date. All right. Next question is it possible students can be accepted and admitted prior to June 30th if they're still in the applying interview process? Better question for Jake and Julian, I think.
Yeah, we can dive into this in a little bit.
Okay, we'll answer that question before you head off today. All right, well, everyone, it's a pleasure having you on our webinar today. We are here to help. Whether or not you attend Alliant, we're happy to answer your questions. We're in it for the greater good. Our goal is to educate, whether it's at Alliant or another school, to educate as many mental health professionals as possible. We need more licensed mental health professionals. It's something we're very dedicated to. It's our passion. It comes from the heart. I live it in my personal life too. And I think you'll find that our team of staff and faculty are centered around that passion to produce quality mental health professionals so that the American public and even globally can have access to mental health. It's still a dire shortage of licensed professionals. And I can tell you, my spouse typically still has a waiting list of clients waiting to see him on a regular basis. And there's still a great need in our communities for people like you. So I want to thank you for having the passion to look into this program. We're happy to help you in your journey and make the best decision what's best for you and your family. So thank you for attending today. We'll turn it back to Jake and everybody else. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Andy. Yeah, and the short answer to that question that had popped up, yes, you can be admitted prior to that date. And we'll go into a bit more discussion about the admissions process a little bit later on here. But as you can see, Andy is extremely dedicated and very, very involved with this process. We thank him here at Alliant that he had been able to be so involved with the process, and he actually did help make such a big change. We do thank him for hopping on. Next, we're going to move on to the finance portion with Crystal, our student finance officer. You can take it away, Crystal.
Hello, welcome. So, as Andy was speaking on, it was the One Big Beautiful Bill, which is going to impact a lot of new students that are starting in terms of eligibility, availability, and then, of course, limits to student loans. So, in terms of the Big Beautiful Bill, it does impact our current, our active, and then, of course, our new students here in terms of loan eligibility. And when you're looking to start the programs. If students are looking to start the program before July 1st, so in your case, that would be within our summer session, which is going to be June 1st, you're going to be under a legacy provision. And what that means is, just like Andy was saying, it'll go ahead and allow you to have access to current loan limits based off of what the current eligibility is. And that does include the federal direct Stafford or the Stafford direct loan, which is the unsubsidized loan for graduate students, as well as the Graduate PLUS loan. And then as long as aid is dispersed, that legacy provision will be available to students through June of 2029 or their expected degree completion date. And that degree completion date is going to be listed on the enrollment agreement. Whichever comes first or whichever is shorter. What factors may cause to lose eligibility or lose the legacy provision before 2029? If in the event you take a 0-unit course, that can impact your legacy provision status, an approved academic absence, part-time enrollment if you're not staying based off of full-time or based off of your curriculum plan, that can impact that eligibility. Failure to obtain an approved internship or practicum, that can extend your program out or beyond that legacy provision, as well as dissertation extension. So if you need to take an extension course that does go beyond that anticipated graduation date or anticipated completion date, that can impact that legacy provision as well. So, when it comes to the professional program designation, according to the U.S. Department of Education, a professional degree is a degree that signifies both completion of the academic requirements for beginning practice in a given profession and a level of professional skill beyond that normally require the bachelor's degree. As of right now, when it comes to our programs, those programs are clinical psychology, both PhD and PsyD are the only two programs that are designated as professional programs. So the MFT program will be considered a non-professional program. And what that means is annual amount, which is 20,500, that will not change. So that amount is what is the current loan limit based annually. That 20,500. If you do decide to start after the summer session, that will stay the same. And then the new loan limit would be 100,000 lifetime limit for non-professional programs, which you would be the group that this would impact. These new limits also do not include undergraduate loan limits, which for an undergraduate program is 57,500. This does not include that in terms of your overall lifetime if in the event you do start in fall. So some examples or scenarios in terms of consider both tuition fees and cost of living. It is important to consider the total cost is subject to change and varies by campus location. What that means is tuition can increase throughout the time that you're within the program. You're not grandfathered into the cost of attendance at the time that you start. Also, the Grad PLUS coverage is subject to eligibility. Again, Grad PLUS, you will be placed in a legacy provision and will be able to continue receiving that up until June of 2029 if you decide to start during your summer session. If in the event you do decide to start in fall, that will no longer be available. And then also the unsubsidized loan eligibility will be reduced if you do have previously borrowed student loans. And what we can do is we can check your previous loan history if you want to go ahead and make an appointment with our department. And then that way we can kind of give you more of a realistic expectation depending on what that start date will look like and where you will land in terms of loan eligibility. So just like I was saying, feel free to schedule an appointment with one of our student finance officers in our department. We are here to answer any questions that you have. Even if you're not yet enrolled or admitted into the program, we'll welcome all those questions. We would like you to be prepared in terms of your start date and what you're looking at. We can give you information on either start date just by providing some insight in terms of what your previous lending history looks like. Don't hesitate, make an appointment. We are here to help with any questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much,
Mhm.
Crystal, for going through that with us. If you all would like to set up an appointment, feel free to do so. Another thing I'd like to point out is while we definitely want you all to set up an appointment and get an understanding of how this situation might impact you, later on down the line, when you do have a FAFSA completed and you have classes added to your schedule, this type of scenario is when we're able to give you a bit more of an individualized understanding of your personal finances. So understanding your previous, loans as well as what you have scheduled currently for your classes, that being full time, it gives us a better way to give you an individualized and a personalized financial approach. I do see a question that popped up. Maybe this will be for you, Crystal, and we can maybe answer this now. How many applicants typically apply for the summer and fall sessions? What? Oh, we'll get into that. We'll talk a bit more soon, and I think Julian might be able to pop into that question. He knows a bit better. To finalize our finance portion of this webinar, please set up an appointment. We very much encourage you to do so. And later on down the line, when you have a few more things on your schedule and if FAFSA completed, you can get a better understanding. But moving forward, so this is the summer overview. We went over a lot of this stuff already, so I'm just gonna kind of breeze through it. We have a June 1st start date coming up. You could begin your program a bit sooner while also being able to maintain your legacy status, which have to have loans dispersed before July 1st. The way that this will work is you're essentially rolling into the fall cohort if you start in the summer. You guys will basically be the same cohort, but we're giving you the opportunity to pull back a couple classes that you would be taking further down the line if you were to start in fall and take them a bit earlier. What that means is we're potentially giving you all the option to start online. So how is this beneficial? The reason this is beneficial is because a lot of folks are finishing up their degrees in the summer. And if you start in the fall, maybe that's a better option for you because you need to relocate, right? If we're able to give you an online option, that means you don't have to relocate. You could take the class online. It's not going to be a very large amount of classes or extreme course load. It's just enough to get you to be full time so we can get you to maintain that legacy status. However, this might be different from location to location. If you're looking at one location versus another friend that's applying to a different location, this could look a bit different. It really depends. I did personally and my team have a meeting with the system-wide MFT program director. Her name is Manajay. However, they're still ironing out the details on how this will work. The online option is something that she is 100% considering. So down the line, when you're speaking to your admissions counselor, please just ask them. Ask them specifically about your program at your campus because we do have, a master's in MFT and we have the PhD in MFT at multiple locations with different program directors and how they plan to run those programs. So please just keep in mind that it could vary, and we're trying to do that for you all, so you don't have to relocate if relocation is going to be a hurdle for you. So definitely wanted to mention that your admissions counselor is going to be the best resource for you. So please go ahead and connect with your admissions counselor. International students, this does not apply to you, this online option. If you are an international student, you're not going to have an online option. This is because it's a visa requirement for you to be in person. I'm sure you do know that if you are an international student, but just wanted to make that very clear. If you're currently completing your bachelor's degree now, you may still be eligible to start in June. Let's say your degree ends in, late May and the class is done, but it's not posted, and the registrar's office doesn't have an updated transcript to send to our registrar's office showing degree conferral. We can still get you started. It's a very common practice for registrar's offices to send out a letter to another institution stating that a student did complete their final course and is on track to graduate. That's just a letter of completion from the registrar's office that we would accept if you are not going to have your official transcript or even an unofficial transcript showing course completion in time or degree completion. So that's another thing that we can work with. I did see the question about the fall. The fall is actually the next, it's going to be August 24th, August 24th, 2026. So the fall overview, it's just business as usual. It's going to start when we would normally start every August for this program. You're just not legacy eligible. You're not going to be in legacy status because your loans are not going to be dispersed prior to the June deadline. The programs will run as scheduled, and you're not going to have that online option. So those thinking about starting in the fall, just don't think that's going to be an option for you. Our program is not online. It's not supposed to be online. This is just an option that we're giving students that are starting in the summer so they don't have to relocate. It's going to be specific to those starting in the summer. And if you already applied, every single day, I get an email or one of my staff get an email on my team about wanting to switch. Just email us. Just give us a call. It's not a big deal. We can get you switched over. You don't have to go through the whole application process again. You don't have to submit all your documents. Just let us know and we can get you moving forward towards a different start date. It's not too late. So feel free to reach out to us if that is the case for you. Right now, just keep in contact with your admissions counselor. If you haven't started an application and you're interested in summer, just make sure to click the summer option. It does, save you and us a little bit of work of getting it switched over down the line. We did see a question pop up. Will we need to fill out the FAFSA before the start of this year to be eligible or able to have the loan dispensed before June 29th? Or do we still have time to fill out the FAFSA? What do you say, Crystal?
There's still time. If you are looking to start in the July session, you will want to complete the 25-26 FAFSA. So just make sure that you do go ahead and get that one completed, or both are available. 25-26 and 26-27. I just tell students just go ahead and complete them both. They're going to be utilizing the same tax year. So, but specifically for summer start, you want to complete the 25-26, and there is still time.
This next question is very interesting. So, Chris, I'd like to see your insight on this. Is what if a student is currently enrolled in a program projected to end June 14th and is taking out Grad PLUS loans for that program?
So that's more of a unique situation. So that's more of a student by student. To be honest, ideally, if a student is taking out aid at another school, both, let's say, the unsubsidized loan and Grad PLUS, there is a possibility that we could potentially offer Grad PLUS for that specific student just for cost of attendance. So just for tuition and fees. So there is a possibility.
There's possibility. And they're starting a new program starting June 14th. So you don't think that would exempt them from continuing that Grad PLUS? That's a great question.
No, because ideally it'll put you in an overlapping loan period.
Really, really great question, Marina. Thanks for asking that. That is everything that we have for you today. I just want to thank everyone for showing up. And we just wish you the best of luck in your journey for the MFT program here at Alliant. Thank you guys so much.